Revealed. The amazing moment one Apache pleaded, but a Cattleman ignited an incredible uprising. Aiyana stood at the precipice of her family's land, the harsh desert winds howling as though echoing her inner turmoil. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in frantic hues of orange and pink. She felt it deep in her bones, the weight of her ancestors pressing down like the vastness of the Arizona sky above. This land, riddled with memories of laughter and stories, was being suffocated by Jack Connors, an opportunistic cattleman seeking to transform her heritage into industrial pastures. Time was running out, and with it, the possibility of preserving her family's legacy. In the throes of despair, she rummaged through the cluttered remnants of her grandmother's belongings, each item a thread weaving together her lineage. Hidden beneath layers of fabric, she stumbled upon an aged parchment, the treaty, a stitch of history that bound her family to this land under questionable circumstances. Betrayal surged through her, igniting a fierce determination that coursed through her veins. Was this the spark that could ignite a rebellion against the Cattleman? She could almost taste the fight. Stepping out into the fading light, she approached her neighbors, rough hands lingering on worn tools and tired faces etched with skepticism. Each plea for unity met with resistance, a chorus of fears drowning out her desperate call for solidarity. Would they abandon her? The pang of betrayal stung like a desert thorn. Every person she spoke to weighed her resolve down further. She knew their livelihoods relied on Connors's encroaching grasp, and the ever-looming shadow of their financial dependence tightened around them like a vice. She stood firm, mouth dry but pulse racing, every rejection a blade twisting deeper into her heart. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The next day, Aiyana's resolve hardened like the ever-unchanging boulders around her. As she walked the worn paths of her ancestors, she felt memories swirling like the dust rising from her feet. Could she really stand against them all? But shadows lurked, doubt clouding the edges of her clarity. She envisioned herself, an image of resilience, tearing through the fabric of this fight. Yet what of the consequences? Her neighbors, caught in silence, bore witness to rising tensions. The whispers in the air hinted at a violent confrontation that brewed like a summer storm. The fateful protest against Connors erupted, culminating in chaos as one community member fell to the ground, bleeding and crumpled. Aiyana, the ambitious warrior, was left grappling with a torrent of guilt. Had her fervor provoked this catastrophe? She questioned her place in this tangled web of heritage and survival. As she faced Connors, the world around her faded, leaving only them, two embodiments of conflict. With the truth poised on the tip of her tongue, Aiyana caught the glances of her neighbors, their hearts beating to the rhythm of indecision. They stood at the precipice, balancing faith against fear. Would they stand with her, or would she fade into the annals of forgotten struggles? Sweat coursed down Aiyana's brow, each droplet a moment suspended, threatening to shatter into the reality she had fought to protect. The fate of her family's legacy hung in that air, heavy and electric, waiting for an answer that could alter everything. Aiyana felt her heart in her throat, each beat echoing the conflict raging inside her. Was she prepared to face Jack Connors, to wield the truth as both shield and sword? The parchment crumpled in her hand, the treaty serving as a testament to her family's right to this land, but at what cost? As the dust of yesterday's confrontation settled in her mind, the reality of the situation threatened to suffocate her. Fingers trembling, she traced the faded ink of the treaty, imagining the lives intertwined with that fragile document. She could sense her ancestors urging her forward, their voices mingling with the desert winds. Yet the weight of expectation made her hesitate. What if she failed them? In this moment of reflection, Aiyana resolved to reframe her approach. Convincing the neighbors to join her fight felt like scaling a steep mountain. She needed an angle, a strategy that appealed to their underlying fears and hopes. The coming days would require not just courage, but a game plan. Aiyana understood that emotion often swayed more than logic, and she intended to use that to her advantage. That night, she spent hours drafting a speech, each word meticulously chosen to resonate deeply with the pain of loss, the fear of displacement, and the desperation for stability. Aiyana was not just fighting for her family's land, she was fighting for the sense of identity that connected her people to their history. When the sun broke the horizon, dawn's light revealed her newfound resolve. It was time to articulate her vision, to summon the strength within her community. As she made her way back to the neighbors' homes, nerves knotted her stomach. Each step felt significant, a commitment to what lay ahead. The sound of her footfalls echoed, reminding her of the solitude she had often felt. How would she penetrate the armor of distrust? Gathering her strength, she stepped into the center of the small gathering that formed outside. One by one, familiar faces turned toward her. There they stood, a tapestry woven from common threads yet frayed by fear. "Friends, family," Aiyana began, her voice steady but powerful. "Yesterday, we witnessed the length someone will go to erase our history, to suffocate the legacy of our ancestors." She paused, watching the flicker of recognition transform the expressions of her neighbors. "I feel the weight of every decision, the pull of each fear," she continued. "But we are more than the sum of our fears. We carry the stories, the strength of our lineage. The treaty, yes, it's flawed, it's murky, but it binds us to this land. It's our history. If we don't reclaim it, we risk losing who we are." Aiyana's passion surged through her, punctuated by breathless pauses that allowed room for contemplation. Around her, silent reflections washed over her neighbors' faces, igniting embers of thought that had long lain dormant. For the first time, she saw flickers of hope gleam in their eyes, not just resignation, but a spark of camaraderie. They were grappling with their own questions, the struggles of loyalty and identity weighing heavily upon them. As she concluded her speech, the murmurs of agreement blossomed into a unified resolve. Aiyana knew she had taken a crucial step towards rallying her community, yet still, within her, doubt writhed like a restless serpent. Had she planted the seeds for unity strong enough to withstand future storms? Then she caught sight of Jack Connors lurking nearby, a silent observer, shadowed by suspicion. A new chill gripped her, clashing with the warmth of her budding unity. The confrontation loomed like dark clouds swirling overhead, demanding her attention. The moment for action was drawing near. Could she hold firm, or would the storm of their uncertainties tear through this fragile alliance she had just begun to form? Aiyana chewed on her bottom lip as she watched Jack Connors, his scowl etched deep into the rugged lines of his face. The warmth of her neighbor's camaraderie faded, replaced by a creeping unease. Uncertainty swirled around her like dust in the desert winds, and she could not shake the feeling that looming confrontation could shatter the fragile resolve she had just ignited. What now? She thought, revisiting the idea of a plan. She couldn't afford to leave their fates in the hands of chance, nor could she fall prey to second-guessing herself. The energy humming among her people renewed her determination. Every pair of eyes burning into hers held both hope and fear. She had awakened them, but could she keep that flame alive? As evening draped its cloak across the horizon, Aiyana retreated to the sanctuary of her home, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth and sage. Alone, she reviewed her speech, but it now felt incomplete. There was an aspect missing, a deeper connection she hadn't yet made. She needed more than a collective narrative. She required a personal testament that would lay bare her heart's vulnerability. With a pen in hand, she scribbled her experiences, revealing her struggles to navigate the land that held her ancestors' legacies. Memories flowed freely as she poured her fear, grief, and pain onto the page, but also, crucially, her hopes for tomorrow. It became clear that drawing from her own story would lend her voice authenticity and draw in those wary of her intentions. They needed to know why this fight mattered to her, personally. That night, sleep did not come easily. Images of Jack loomed large in her mind, shadows juxtaposed against her burgeoning awakening. She was reminded of her family history, tales shared during long desert nights under the vast expanse of stars, and the spirit that coursed through her veins. Would she summon enough courage to channel that heritage into her words? Days passed, and Aiyana spent her mornings crafting and refining her message while rehearsing it thunderously in the solitude of her room. Each time, her confidence swelled, and each rehearsal bore the weight of greater knowledge. With each layer she peeled back from her heart, she felt stronger, the tether to her past bolstering her resolve for the future. As she prepared for another meeting with her neighbors, a profound realization struck. She was no longer merely a voice of reason or an echo of her ancestors' struggles. She was their direct descendant, tasked with reclaiming what was rightfully theirs. The treaty would be part of her armor, but it would be her personal narrative that would shield her spirit. Gathering her notes, Aiyana could feel the dawn breaking, an invitation to face her fears head-on. She envisioned her neighbors' faces, some smiling, others furrowed in thought, all searching for a thread of truth in her words. She took a deep breath, recalling the resolve she had felt when she first planned to speak. This time, however, a defiance flickered in her eyes. She wouldn't let Jack impede her progress. She would wield her story as power, a vessel for unity. As she reached the gathering spot, the murmurs subsided. Her heart raced in anticipation, each beat reminding her that she was no longer alone in this fight. She stood before them, brief flashes of self-doubt vying for attention, yet she knew what had to be done. "Today," she started, her voice unwavering, "I am you. We are more than the land, more than the treaty. We are our stories, our identities, and we cannot be silenced." And there, watching and waiting, surrounded by the weight of their collective struggle, Jack Connors took a step forward. The moment had arrived. How would she confront him and maintain her ground? Aiyana's pulse quickened as she locked eyes with Jack, the air thick between them, charged with a mix of anticipation and antagonism. She felt a rush of emotions, fear, anger, and determination, battling within her. This was not merely a confrontation over land or a treaty. It was a battle for her identity, for the history that coursed through her veins, an ancestral duty she could no longer shy away from. Jack's brow furrowed deeper, the intensity of his stare unwavering. Aiyana took a steadying breath, anchoring herself in the moment, channeling the stories she had poured into her speech, the elements of her heritage that had taken shape within her. "Jack," she began, her voice steady yet fierce, "you may see us as just people fighting over land, but we are so much more than that. We are legacies, traditions and dreams, the promise of who we were and who we can still be." Skepticism danced in Jack's eyes, but Aiyana refused to back down. Each word she uttered was calibrated, meant to resonate not only with her neighbors, but also to pierce through Jack's hardened exterior. She had to make him understand that this wasn't only about land, it was about respect, identity, and the right to thrive. For a fleeting moment, doubt crept in, whispering insidiously that maybe Jack was just a man driven by interests that had little to do with her. But that thought sparked another fire deep within her, a challenge she could not ignore. "I see you, Jack. I see your struggle too, but you need to see us." Jack took a step closer, and the tension thickened. "I see a community clinging to a past that may not be what you think it is, Aiyana. The world has changed. You're fighting an uphill battle, and you won't win with nostalgia." His words stung, but they also ignited her fury. She was not just a voice from the past. She was the embodiment of her ancestors' hopes. How could she confront him? She wouldn't allow herself to become a victim of his dismissal. This was where she could leverage her truth with a force that resonated beyond disdain. "Yes, the world has changed," she retorted, her voice rising with fervor. "But that doesn't erase our history. It doesn't diminish our worth. What we want is not just a piece of land. It's our right to exist on it, to raise our families, nurture our traditions. This is ours, and we will fight for it." He scoffed, as if brave words would easily dismantle 3 centuries of struggle. Their standoff stirred murmurs among the neighbors, and Aiyana could sense the tension escalate. Jabs of uncertainty tempted her, but she fueled her defiance with every hopeful face before her. "I won't allow intimidation to silence my spirit, Jack," she declared, steeling herself further. She knew that her mother's voice echoed through her. It was the voice of countless women before her, filled with the courage that they had woven into every generation. "You may believe this fight is futile, but I promise you, you don't know the first thing about the tenacity our people possess. It is a fire that can't be extinguished." As her words hung thick in the air, Aiyana felt a swell of empowerment. No longer was she just reacting to Jack's advances. She was stepping into her role as a leader. The curtain had lifted on her own capacity for strength. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, curiosity melding with support, as Jack's face flushed with a mixture of frustration and realization. "I want to make it clear that I stand for something much larger than myself," Aiyana continued. "This is more than claiming land, it's claiming a voice, our voice." She dared to hold Jack's gaze, searching for any hint of acknowledgement in his hardened demeanor. The silence that followed felt like suspended tension, and for the first time, a glimmer of doubt seemed to flicker in Jack's eyes. "What if," he began cautiously, breaking the silence, "there's a way we can both benefit from this situation?" But his cautious proposition bore no immediate resolution. Aiyana knew that challenges lay ahead, that the path before her was fraught with complexity. How could she trust him? Would he truly honor the legacy she sought to protect? The battle, it seemed, was just beginning, and within that moment she realized every fight required not only strength but also a gamble on trust. How far was she willing to go to reshape the discourse? Aiyana felt the weight of Jack's proposition linger in the air. His question echoed like a beacon of hope, and yet it hovered like a storm cloud, threatening to unleash chaos. What could possibly be mutual about their vastly differing views? She sensed the rising energy around her, not just from Jack, but from those who were listening intently. This could be the juncture where transformation occurred. Her heart raced as decisions cascaded through her mind. Was it possible to find common ground, or merely a trap disguised as opportunity? The challenge was monumental, but so was the potential for growth. "I won't gamble on false promises, Jack," she said, her voice a blend of caution and resolve. "If there's a path forward, it has to acknowledge our truth. It can't just be an agreement built on convenience." Jack's eyes narrowed, his resolve appearing both tested and intrigued. "I understand," he replied, his tone shifting slightly. "But what does that look like for you? What concessions would you be willing to consider?" The question struck her like lightning. This was new terrain, and she had to tread carefully while staying true to her purpose. Would she dilute her beliefs for a chance at progress? Her mind turned to the stories of her ancestors, their struggles, their victories, the lessons of perseverance. "I will not concede my culture. It remains paramount in this battle," she declared, the courage from deep within rising to the surface. "But I am willing to explore what it means to coexist here, as long as respect forms the basis of any agreement." A flicker of understanding appeared in Jack's expression. Perhaps there was a bridge forming, albeit a fragile one. It ignited a cautious optimism within her, spurring her to consider what this could truly mean, not just for herself, but for her community. Jack hesitated, his brow furrowing again as he assessed her words. "What if we created a partnership? You advocate for your people, and I ensure their voices are echoed in discussions about the future of this land. It doesn't erase the fight, but instead shifts the battleground." "Partnership? A convenient term," Aiyana replied, eyeing him critically. "What does that really entail? Real partnership means making space for each other's existence, not merely paying lip service while making decisions behind closed doors." She felt a rush of anxiety. Could she trust him to follow through? The enormity of their situation weighed heavily like an anchor at the pit of her stomach. Failure could also mean losing it all for her community. It was a risk she hadn't anticipated embarking on. Jack sighed, his features softening, meeting her powerful gaze with a newfound seriousness. "It's not easy for me to negotiate this position, Aiyana. I want this outcome to be beneficial for both, but I need you to understand that change takes time. You're fighting against deep-rooted sentiments." Time. The word struck her as both hopeful and daunting. Could she truly allow time, patience, and negotiation to shape their future? Aiyana breathed in deeply, envisioning her people, their faces, their hopes and dreams. She knew she had to navigate this terrain cautiously yet boldly. "Let us start with dialogue then, Jack. Let's invite those who feel they have no voice, those who may fear this very negotiation. You may discover that I'm not the only one with something to say," she proposed, her heart pounding, poised at the edge of both daring and diplomacy. His glance shifted, now holding a hint of respect. "That sounds like a start, but we both need to commit fully, in intentions and actions." Aiyana felt a wave of anticipation wash over her. She was edging closer to forging a different path, a path that dared to intertwine their realities. This was not merely about claiming land or traditional practices. It was about the future, the legacy that could be born from collaboration. But as she reflected, unease began to creep in. The stakes were incredibly high, and trust was a fragile commodity. Soon, they'd be inviting others into their discussions, a move that could either establish solidarity or unleash dissent. "Then let's begin to build that bridge, Jack," Aiyana replied, her voice steady, though her mind raced with the enormity of their next steps. What she couldn't shake was the haunting realization that even the best intentions could be shattered in an instant. The storm was still brewing, and she felt it approaching with menacing speed. As she contemplated their next moves, another question loomed large in her mind. How would she protect her community's legacy amidst turbulent waters if betrayal lurked just beyond the horizon? The moment of truth was approaching, and she knew she needed to stand resolute or risk losing everything she had fought for. Aiyana awoke the next morning with a determined mind, the threads of her dialogue with Jack still weaving through her thoughts like a complex tapestry yet to be completed. Each stitch had to be deliberate. She couldn't risk a careless approach. Any flaw in her strategy could unravel everything she had been building for herself and her community. As the sun poured light through her window, illuminating the pages of her journal, she felt compelled to record her reflections. The ink moved swiftly under the pressure of an anxious heart. What were the key points she needed to assert during the next discussion? She scribbled furiously: respect, transparency, collaboration. Each word resonated with both urgency and an underlying fear of what could be lost. With the day ahead brimming with uncertainty, Aiyana chose to delve into the community. She walked the familiar roads that weaved through her neighborhood, greeting those she passed with nods and smiles. Today wasn't just about assessing where they stood, it was about listening. As she leaned into her cultural heritage, Aiyana felt the weight of responsibility forging a path through her worries. Her first stop was the community center. It felt alive with the voices of her people, each person a vibrant thread in the rich fabric of their shared story. Aiyana stepped inside, the scent of wood and warmth wrapping around her. Children played, while elders sat in clusters sharing tales from days gone by. She sought out her mentor, Miss Mabel, who, with her wise eyes and gentle demeanor, had been a guiding force in Aiyana's life. "Tell me, Mabel, how do we assert ourselves if negotiations seem to favor the loudest voices?" Aiyana asked, her brow furrowed with concern. With a knowing smile, Mabel replied, "Aiyana, sometimes it's not just about being heard. It's about creating dialogue. Start small, encourage questions, voice your fears, and bring them into the light." She placed a steady hand on Aiyana's shoulder. "You already possess strength. Use that to nurture communication, not confrontation." Feeling empowered by her sage words, Aiyana gathered insight for her next steps. She left the center feeling lighter, fortified by the realization that meaningful dialogue could stem from the unlikeliest interactions. The deeper she dug into her connections, the more potential she saw to shape her vision. As the day unfolded, Aiyana sought out local outlets to spread awareness of the upcoming discussions with Jack. She spoke with shop owners and community leaders, gathering their thoughts and inviting them to share their narratives. There was an overwhelming respect for her venture, but beneath the surface, Aiyana could sense the lingering doubts. Many felt apprehensive about trusting an outsider, no matter how sincere he might appear. The late afternoon sun kissed her cheeks as she made her way home, her steps purposeful. With every interaction, she became more aware of her own capacity to lead. This journey was not simply about defending her heritage, but was also awakening something deeper within her, the courage to stand firm for an evolving legacy. However, the doubts persisted. What if Jack's intentions turned treacherous? Would her community stand united if he faltered? Aiyana grappled with the complexity of trust in her upcoming meeting. Suddenly, she realized she needed to demonstrate her own commitment to transparency, not merely demand it from him. That night, she sat in front of her mirror, rehearsing her speech. The reflection staring back challenged her to confront her fears head-on. "You can do this," she whispered, "but you must hold on to who you are and what you represent." The meeting loomed on the horizon, filled with uncertainty and promise. As she drifted into sleep, she envisioned a path of collaboration glowing with potential. The tides might shift, but Aiyana had gained momentum. Clarity surged through her, a revelation that had long been waiting to be unearthed. She could be the architect of this partnership, not a mere bystander. But the real test lay ahead. Would her actions match her convictions when the moment came to confront Jack? The stakes were rising, as was her resolve to meet them. She would not only fight for her community's place in this narrative, but would also discover the multiplier effect her leadership could have. The dawn of the negotiation would soon break, and Aiyana felt an unsettling mix of excitement and dread as she realized the inherent unpredictability of the path before her. What if Jack were not the only one with hidden agendas? The revelation sat heavy, a shadow lurking behind the light she pursued, and she knew she must be ready to confront whatever emerged. As dawn broke, Aiyana's heart raced at the thought of her meeting with Jack. The anticipation of the encounter already chiseled an urgency into her plans. She wanted to be ready, not just in words but in spirit. After all, she wasn't merely representing herself. She stood as a voice for her people, a role that felt heavier and more significant than ever. Armed with her notebook and the key concepts she had gathered, she headed to the meeting venue, her mind oscillating between hope and caution. Would Jack see beyond his own agenda? Was he prepared to listen? The questions buzzed in her mind like persistent gnats, but she refused to let doubt stifle her resolve. Upon arriving, Aiyana noted the subdued charm of the meeting space. The air buzzed with murmurs of anticipation, yet the tension was palpable, echoing the uncertainty that loomed over her. Eyeing Jack as he set up his materials, she sensed the weight of his presence, his confidence even more pronounced in this environment. It was clear he had every intention of steering the conversation. But so did she. As he turned toward her, Aiyana inhaled deeply, channeling her mentor's wisdom. This was her opportunity to craft a dialogue, not just about appeasement, but transformation. "Thank you for meeting with me, Jack," she began, her voice steady. "I believe we both want what is best for this community, but it's essential that we start from a place of understanding and respect." Jack's response was swift, laced with bravado. "Of course, Aiyana, but let's get real. It's about opportunity. My project can bring jobs, growth. It's about moving forward." While his words carried promise, Aiyana felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She had expected this approach, yet she couldn't let it overshadow the foundational aspect of her concerns. "And at what cost?" she countered, her tone measured but firm. The history of projects like these often sidelines the voices of those most affected by the outcomes. If we're going to move forward, we have to ensure that every perspective is valued. For a moment, Jack looked taken aback. His confidence flickered, revealing a crack she couldn't ignore. It was an opening, a chance to press further into the depths of the negotiation. "Your past experiences give you insight that I may not fully understand," he admitted, a hint of reluctance in his voice. "I'm all about collaboration. What do you propose?" His question hung in the air, and Aiyana seized it as if it were a lifeline. This was her moment to assert herself fully. "Let's form a committee that includes community members, people who can speak to the real needs and potential impacts of your project. This isn't merely about economic benefits. We need to ensure that cultural heritage and individual livelihoods are respected in the process." As she articulated her vision, Aiyana felt a transformation happening within herself. No longer merely a participant in the discussion, she was becoming a leader, shaping the narrative as it unfolded. Every word she spoke solidified her commitment to accountability. Jack's expression was dissolving into contemplation. Good, she wanted to evoke that very reaction. But as Jack shifted, Aiyana felt a warning tingle within her. His hesitation fueled her distrust. He was too accustomed to having the upper hand, and though he acknowledged the need for change, she sensed a lingering reluctance to truly share his power. What if he viewed this collaboration merely as a formality, a way to placate? The uncertainty tangled around Aiyana's thoughts like creeping vines. Just as she prepared to delve deeper into their discussion, Jack's phone buzzed on the table, snapping him back to a different reality. He answered the call swiftly, his demeanor shifting back to businesslike. Aiyana's heart dropped momentarily. She couldn't afford to lose the momentum she had gained. "Listen, I have to take this," he said brusquely, rising from the table. Alone for a moment, Aiyana's mind raced. She could not let this happen. Would she have to push him on every point? In that instant, she made a critical choice. She would take the initiative to build trust not only between them, but throughout the community, regardless of Jack's approach. As Jack ended the call, Aiyana's resolve surged. She would not just be a negotiator, she would lead with intention, leveraging every ounce of her heritage as her shield and guide. They would be in this together, or she would uncover how to make her community's voice resonate through his corporate ambitions. "Let's recalibrate, Jack," she proposed, a newfound urgency driving her tone. "What if we explore why people are hesitant about your project? Understanding this will create a more profound connection and engagement from everyone." As she spoke the words, anticipation dulled her previous fears. The stakes were indeed rising. Would he see the value in what she offered, or would he retreat beneath his well-crafted facade? This wasn't just a negotiation, it was a trial. Every dialogue would test her resolve and deepen her understanding. The meeting was taking on an electric quality, and Aiyana knew that the next pivotal moment was just on the horizon. But what awaited her next? Would she have to face Jack's resistance head-on, or was there an unexpected twist ready to unfold in this intricate dance of negotiation? Aiyana's proposition hung in the air, vibrating with potential and uncertainty. Jack sat back down, irritation brewing in his eyes, yet a flicker of curiosity darted across his face. The moment felt significant, charged with both challenge and opportunity. His immediate response was defensive. "People are always hesitant about change. That's not new, Aiyana." He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms as the barrier between them solidified once more. Aiyana felt her heart rate quicken but remained composed. "It's not just change, it's about trust. They are wary for good reason. Projects like yours have left too many behind." Her voice softened, emphasizing the word trust. She wanted to engage his empathy, to lead him beyond the tough exterior that kept him from understanding the gravity of his impact. "Then what do you suggest?" he retorted, his tone sharper. "Should we just wait indefinitely while we dialogue? This is a business, Aiyana." With each word, she sensed the urgency magnifying around them. Time weighed down on her, begging her to act decisively. What Jack viewed as a simple business matter was an intricate exchange of history, identity, and futures. "No, we shouldn't wait," she replied, grounding herself. "Instead, we need to integrate those voices into the planning process. A real collaboration involves active participation, not just occasional meetings." Jack scoffed, visibly annoyed. "You're asking for a lot of excess bureaucracy for a project that's ultimately meant to drive progress." Aiyana recognized his dismissal, but refused to let it deter her. "Isn't that the point? To shift the paradigm of what progress means? To redefine it beyond just financial? What you present as a burden could actually become an avenue for innovation." His expression softened again, if only slightly, and with it, Aiyana found glimmers of hope. She was tapping into something deeper within Jack, challenging him to expand his perspective. But was he truly willing to entertain the notion? She took a moment, studying him. Instead of rushing her words, she decided to share a story from her childhood, one that had shaped her understanding of community values. "When I was young, there was a local project to build a park. However, the plans overlooked an ancestral site. Our elders fought for its preservation, and they taught me that progress shouldn't erase history, it should enhance it." As she spoke, Aiyana's vulnerability felt empowering. Jack's walls momentarily crumbled, and she seized upon the brief opening. "If we can align our goals by honoring the past while building the future, imagine what that could create." Jack shifted his gaze, contemplating her words. His brow furrowed with thought, but doubt still played in the back of his mind. Aiyana leaned in, sensing the shift she had instigated. "What if we iterated the proposal to include focus groups, real conversations with affected individuals?" Silence filled the space, heavy with possibility. Yet Aiyana knew she had to challenge him further. She needed to press beyond surface-level discussions, even if it meant confronting uncomfortable truths. "This isn't just a negotiation for you, Jack. It's an opportunity to redefine your legacy. History will remember how you approached this project. Will you be seen as a leader who bulldozed onward, or one who opened the door to authentic transformation?" The tension crackled, their shared silence a battleground of ideas. Jack blinked, digesting her challenge, but a flicker of resistance shone in his eyes. Aiyana could taste the uncertainty, the struggle to reconcile ambition with accountability, but that struggle mirrored her own journey. What if she entrusted him with her fears? "I'm afraid this will fail if we don't acknowledge the past," she said, her voice steady. "But I also believe in the potential for something remarkable, if we are willing to invest in each other." His exhalation was sharp, the weight of the decision puncturing the air between them. Jack leaned forward, a hesitant hope surfacing amidst the doubt. Before Aiyana could decipher his thoughts, however, the phone buzzed violently on the table again, interrupting their connection. Jack glanced at the screen and sighed, clearly torn between answering and maintaining the momentum of their conversation. Could she afford to let him step away once more? "Jack, please," she pressed, urgency bubbling under her calm facade. "Let's finish what we started. We can reshape not just the project, but the framework for future discussions." She felt the unfolding potential, yet the constant battle between ambition and empathy reminded her that the most transformative impacts often required the deepest discomfort. He hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty sparking within him. Aiyana's heart raced as she realized the path ahead would demand every ounce of skill she could muster. Was she prepared to navigate the complexities that lay ahead? But did she truly trust Jack enough to forge a unified vision? A new layer of conflict loomed, pressing her to decide not just what she could offer, but what risks she was willing to embrace. As Jack held the phone in his hand, Aiyana prepared for whatever came next, aware that every choice carried the weight of both her heritage and her aspirations. Jack's indecision lingered in the air like a storm cloud, casting a shadow over Aiyana's optimism. It was a moment stuffed with unspoken words, and she felt the weight of her own vulnerability pressing against the urgency of the situation. If she had ever doubted the necessity of urgency in her mission, it was now clear. "Think about your legacy, Jack," Aiyana urged again, maintaining an even tone despite the growing tempest inside her. "What are you leaving behind for those affected by this project? Will those impacted remember you as someone who simply advanced their interest for profit, or as a leader who genuinely sought their input?" Jack stared at his phone, weighing it against her words. His defense mechanisms were visibly faltering, but the remnants of his corporate instincts held him back. A part of him fought against the idea of transparency, seeing it as a potential vulnerability, yet another part recognized the potential brilliance in Aiyana's suggestion. "I get your point," he muttered, still distracted by the ringing device. "But getting people to engage meaningfully is never as simple as it sounds. They'll want promises, they'll demand changes." "And they should," Aiyana countered, her voice gaining strength. "You don't need to have all the answers right now. You just need to be open to finding them together." The layering of her words folded into his thoughts, creating an inner dialogue that confused and intrigued him at once. With each passing second, Jack wrestled with the notion of change, his identity as a businessman colliding with his flickering conscience. Each time Aiyana's earnest eyes bore into him, he felt the foundation of his ambition trembling, as if he were gazing upon the cliffs of a new possibility. "What if I fail?" he finally vocalized, momentarily lowering the phone. It was a question that unspooled the deeper fears that had haunted him since he took on the project. "What if my efforts only manage to deepen the divide?" "Then we learn," Aiyana replied firmly, her understanding of his fear amplifying as she spoke. "You're not alone in this, Jack. Failure is part of progress, and having the courage to face it will create trust. Take that risk." As Jack processed her words, a rush of memories flooded in. Years spent negotiating contentious deals and weathering backlash, yet never once did he truly allow others into the conversation. It had always been about the bottom line, about maintaining control. A flicker of self-awareness burned within him. This was an awakening that he did not realize he craved, yet he was terrified of what it meant to embrace it. "What if I don't know how?" he admitted, vulnerability revealing itself through the fissures of bravado he clung to. "What if I can't engage with them, make that connection?" Aiyana leaned forward, letting her conviction seep into her voice. "You possess a depth of experience they might need to tap into, Jack. You understand strategy, negotiation, and navigating complex systems. Open communication requires more than just what to say. It's about how to listen. Let them tell their stories. Be willing to learn." Realization edged closer to acceptance in Jack's eyes. This was more than a project. It was a chance to rewrite the narrative that defined his career. But would he muster the courage to break through the barriers he had spent years constructing? I'll think about it, he said at last, slowly laying the phone on the table, the barrier between them beginning to dissolve. The small acknowledgement felt monumental, but Aiyana knew they were still at a crossroads. Thinking isn't enough, Jack. We have to act, and quickly, she insisted, thoughtfully shifting the conversation. Let's draft the framework for these focus groups right now. A few simple questions. We can hone it later. Now? He looked perplexed, clearly unprepared for such rapid movement. Absolutely. We can flesh out our ideas together, bring in mentors or facilitators who can help guide the dialogue with the community. It's a chance for you to prove you're willing to put what you preach into practice. Aiyana balanced on the precipice of opportunity, resolute in making this pivotal moment count. As Jack's uncertainty began to shift toward a tentative eagerness, she realized that this had always been more than a strategic partnership. It was a moment of collective growth. Each decision from here on had consequences, and both had to confront their deepest fears to redefine what success really meant. But then, just as they turned away from the specter of hesitation, Jack's phone buzzed a final time, an urgency that sliced through their moment of connection. Aiyana watched as he glanced at the screen. His expression shifted, eyes narrowing, tension immediately tightening the air once more. "It's my boss," he breathed, the gravity of his reality crashing back in. "Answer it," Aiyana said, her voice firm. "But once you're done, come back to this. We have a foundation to build." As he hesitated, torn between duty and potential, Aiyana realized that trust was an active practice, one that required more than just dialogue. It demanded commitment to both personal and professional values, where the stakes were impossibly high. Would Jack return from that conversation more determined? Or would he allow the weight of his responsibilities to overshadow the breakthrough they'd just sparked? Aiyana felt the unsettling tension grow, bracing herself for whatever awaited her on the other side of his choices. The minutes stretched painfully as Aiyana remained seated, wrestling with her thoughts. Jack had stepped outside, his face still carved from tension, making her acutely aware of the precariousness of their budding alliance. She pondered the journey that had brought her to this moment. Only weeks ago, uncertainty had clouded her desire to protect her family's land. Now she stood on the cusp of not just defending a piece of earth, but potentially crafting a collaborative future, one that intertwined her community's legacy with Jack's corporate vision. When Jack finally re-entered the room, his shoulders were slightly slumped. He was clearly shaken, but once again she felt determination flicker in his gaze as he crossed the threshold. "I'm back," he said quietly. The weight of his presence filled the air, charged with conflicting emotions. Aiyana recognized this moment was pivotal. It was not just about negotiation. This was about faith, commitment, and the vulnerability that comes with forging new partnerships. "So what did they say?" Aiyana asked, her voice steady, urging him without pressure. Jack sighed, appearing both deflated and contemplative. "The call was about the urgency of the project. They want results, and they expect me to manage everything. It's hard to tell them I need to slow down for community focus groups when they see this all as a numbers game." Aiyana sensed walls rising again around him, yet she didn't retreat. Jack recognized that slowing down can create a stronger foundation for the future. This is not just about immediacy, it's about sustainability. You have the power to shape what the outcome looks like. He chuckled bitterly. "Power? But is it my power to wield? If my superiors are insistent on a timeline, what happens if I suggest a different approach?" Aiyana's resolve solidified. She leaned forward, meeting his gaze directly. "You have the authority to propose a new way. You have a choice, to follow orders blindly, or assert leadership that prioritizes integrity and connection. You can redefine what power means in your role." For the first time, Jack appeared visibly moved. "I never considered it that way. You're right. This isn't just business, it's personal, and I can't expect others to believe in this project if I don't believe in it myself." "Yes!" Aiyana felt a surge of hope. "Your role can be transformative, but you need to embrace it. Be transparent with your superiors. Tell them the truth about your intentions, about involving our community from the start." Jack swallowed hard, the last vestiges of resistance fading. Maybe it's time to reframe those conversations. I need to schedule a meeting with them to articulate a vision that includes your community's participation from the get-go." Aiyana smiled, empowerment washing over her like sunlight after a storm. That's a step forward, Jack. Believe in what we're building together. The mix of enthusiasm and uncertainty coiled within him. This was growth, but even growth required nurturing. What if I still face resistance? He asked, genuine concern shadowing his brow. Then we stand strong together, she replied firmly. You must be prepared to advocate for both what you believe and what our community represents. Trust that our shared stories can foster understanding. We can navigate this if we are open and persistent. With that, Aiyana drew out her notebook and suggested they began drafting what the focus group discussions could entail. Together, they joined forces, creating a template for critical questions that would engage community members while eliciting genuine insights. There was a rhythm to their creation, a dance between ambition and reality that promised a fresh start. As they worked, laughter began to punctuate their dialogues. Each inclusion of her community's voice felt more profound, more convincing. Imagine this, Aiyana said. What if we could create not just a project, but a model for future initiatives, one that reverberates through generations? Jack's smile grew, the pressure easing slightly from his features. You're giving me hope that I can impact more than just this one development. It can be a precedent. Yes, we'll advocate for an agenda that emphasizes cultural preservation, economic sustainability, and genuine engagement. Aiyana felt exuberant energy flowing between them, an alliance blossoming in real time. Hours passed as they meticulously curated their approach. And with each draft, the fear that had once gripped Aiyana's heart shifted to unhinged possibility. Here was a space where they challenged the status quo together. Here was an opportunity to show others that change could emerge from collaboration and innovation. Finally, as they hit a milestone in their discussion, Jack paused, glancing at her with renewed determination. I can't thank you enough for pushing me today. You transformed this entire conversation. I didn't transform anything alone. We built this together, and we will build more. If we succeed in this endeavor, it's because we dared to elevate each other. There was a pause, each word reverberating within the silent sanctum of the room. Aiyana caught a fleeting glimpse of the legacy they were about to create. It was not just her family's land that was at stake. It was their combined futures, intertwined now in this intricate web of negotiation. As they finalized their next steps, the realization washed over Aiyana that this alliance was just the beginning. She was done merely defending her heritage. She was actively weaving it into a future worth fighting for. Aiyana emerged from this transformative encounter with a solid confidence and an established position, an advocate, a bridge between cultures, and a custodian of traditions. She had evolved into someone willing to challenge the existing narrative, ready to reclaim her family's legacy, not through resistance, but collaboration. And as they booked the next meeting with her community, she looked at Jack and realized they both had taken a step toward creating something far more impactful than anticipated. Together, they proved that even the most intricate interactions could become a driving force for collective change. Aiyana felt a deep sense of pride swell within her, the whispers of her ancestors cheering. The circle was unbroken, her path illuminated. But the journey ahead remained steeped in uncertainty. How would they navigate the skepticism of their community? Would Jack stand firm against external pressures? Yet despite these questions, Aiyana felt fortified in her growth. She had brought her voice to the table, setting the stage for change, ready to intervene if corruption threatened their progress. The future was unwritten, a blank canvas awaiting their brushstrokes. Armed with courage and fortified by newfound partnerships, she knew she could lead not only for her family, but for a community on the verge of renewal. And now, as the journey unfolded, she felt the stirring echo of possibility resonate. The moment for collaboration had come, and it was theirs to seize. Listen closely, because this is where you join our story. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next transformative journey of resilience and unity. Leave a like now to support the algorithm and spread these compelling narratives. Don't forget to comment your thoughts, your theories, and how you relate to Aiyana's fight. Share instantly this story with at least 5 friends who need the inspiration of overcoming battles for their legacies. Don't wait even one more second to contribute to this vital conversation.